Falcons are actually relieved that he's kind of not there to create more of a distraction. Look, I mean, I said it the day it happened. It was one of the stupider decisions I've ever seen by a professional NFL franchise to sign a quarterback to a $180 million contract and then draft his replacement exactly 5 weeks later. This was a terrible organizational decision by the Falcons. Now, they're going to spin this, and this is what's annoying about the Falcons and their PR staff. They're going to spin this as if this is the plan we had all along. This is the plan that when, Kirk Cousins either got hurt or didn't play well or got too old, we were going to have Penix come in. And guess what? The new plan is now we're going to keep Kirk Cousins as a backup. So if Michael Penix gets hurt, we told you so. We were right for keeping him on the roster. We were smart for keeping him here. No, this whole thing has been an abject disaster.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The Steelers' interested in Aaron Rodgers as a joke. Your boy went off about the entire situation and why it taken so long to forget him. Terry Bradshaw getting involved.
Yeah, and saying basically, what are you bringing him in for 1 year? All of this drama for 1 year at this guy, where he is now in his career is he's washed.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks dump coach Tom Thibodeau after their best season in 25 years. Plus, is this the first and only NBA Finals for ESPN's broadcast trio of Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Richard Jefferson? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories around the business and culture of sports. We also have hockey commentator Jeff Merrick joining us later to preview the Stanley Cup Finals. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around, Baker.
Yeah, let's start with some developing stories. The Phoenix Suns have now found their new head coach, as Shams is reporting that Cleveland assistant Jordan Ott was chosen over fellow Cavs assistant Johnny Bryant. Renee, Shams also saying that Sun star Devin Booker was heavily involved in this process, and Ott was actually his first choice.
Yeah, as Ott becomes the 23rd coach in franchise history, this is the third coach that they've had since firing Monty Williams in May of 2023 in search of a new voice. And now you have Ott stepping into his first head coaching role. You notice there was no Kevin Durant mentioned in that because they're shopping him for other teams. So you're now coming into a franchise that had the highest payroll, under 500 record, and is moving on from Kevin Durant with a new head coach. But for him and Johnny Bryant as well, two Cavs assistants that were the finalists for this opportunity, and it is Ott that gets the op.
Yeah, and by the way, we know Suns owner Matt Ishbia loves any connection to Michigan State. Ott was actually a video coordinator for Tom Izzo. All the more interesting here. Meanwhile, with or without Caitlin Clark, ratings for the WNBA season are giving the network Ion some of its highest numbers yet. Last week's Sun Fever matchup averaged 850,000 viewers. That's the largest ever for the network on a game that did not involve Caitlin Clark. And Ion's ratings, Renee, are actually up 40% from this point last year.
It is remarkable because once Caitlin Clark went down with her quad injury and was going to be absent for some time, we talked on this show about how will this impact the league, and honestly, as an opportunist, show the impact of the league as a whole in terms of their growth without Caitlin Clark, and beyond, I should say, Caitlin Clark. So it is incredible because last season the league was averaging 1 million viewers, and this season, from preseason to the highest ever opening weekend on ESPN, they've continued this trajectory, and it's remarkable that Ion and other networks are also reaping the benefits of incredibly higher viewership. The WNBA's growth is a big result of Caitlin Clark's presence, but also just all the efforts of the league as a whole.
Yeah, and it gets to what we've discussed, which is the league doesn't have to have Caitlin Clark to continue to sustain its success. All right, after hinting at All-Star Game changes for quite a while, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver announced on FS1 that there might indeed be a USA versus the World All-Star Game. Silver says he doesn't know what the format would look like, but did mention the NHL success with its recent Four Nations tournament and that next year's likely matchup of the All-Star Game on NBC also will be taking place during the Winter Olympics.
Now, since 2018, when the NBA rolled out their new All-Star draft format of having captains, they've tinkered so much. They've involved the fans, they've had the captains, they've involved charities, and they haven't been able to get it right. And Adam Silver actually admitted after this year's All-Star format mini tournament that we missed, and they have missed in some aspects. So I do think this actually solves a number of problems with this USA versus Team World, because it also allows them, as they're trying to grow and have a league in Europe and just grow with their international presence, to really rein in and bring in the fans, I should say, in that regard. So we've seen this with the NHL with the Four Nations.
Yep.
We've seen this also in the MLS with
Yep.
their All-Star format, something similar. So I think anytime that you can incorporate that USA international flair, it does add a major opportunity to really reach more fans.
And on the topic of the Olympics, I mean, Silver even mentioned because of the Olympics and men's basketball being so big at the previous Olympics, having it air, the All-Star Game, during the Winter Olympics would only just continue the excitement of a world game.
And now they still just have to figure out what it will look like.
Yes.
Of course, that's part of it too. There's been this thought process around introducing it. Now it's what does that format actually look like? And now we get to sit back and wait to see those details.
Meanwhile, in that Game 6 loss to the Indiana Pacers, it's cost New York head coach Tom Thibodeau his job after he led the Knicks to their best season in 25 years. So why did Knicks owner James Dolan fire the coach? And who's going to replace him on the bench? Let's dive into this and more in our main event. And let's bring in FOS reporter Alex Schiffer for more. Alex, so Tibbs had the best season in 25 years for the Knicks, a team that hasn't done well in a while. Why did the owner, James Dolan, decide to get rid of him?
Yeah, we could start with Jim Dolan just because I think it depends upon who you ask. Some people saying this reeks of a Jim Dolan move. Other people saying this was still Leon Rose. I think the Knicks feel like they underachieved this year, right? I mean, if you watch that series against Indiana, they blew the first two games. There was that crazy Tyrese Halliburton kissed by the basketball gods and fell in shot. They had the lead in game 2. And I think they look at it as they should have gotten more out of this roster and should still be playing. And while he did have the best roster since Bill Clinton was our president, I also think that, the Knicks are looking at this as, was he still the guy to keep this going? And with Rick Brunson, the dad of the team star players, your top assistant, you couldn't really make a move next season in season if it's not like there's some coach in waiting, some young hot name on the bench right now. I feel like they looked at it as like a now or never type thing if they're going to move on from him with this window they have right now.
Well, it's interesting because last July, of course, we did see the 3-year extension for Tibbs. And when you look at his time since 2020, they brought in Jalen Brunson in 2022, Josh Hart 2023. And then, of course, most recently last summer, you bring in Mikal Bridges, you bring in Karl Anthony Towns. It felt like they were in a win-now position, and especially when they were trading away draft picks. Do you feel like they needed one more year, though? I know some people have felt they needed time to gel. Do you think that this was maybe one season too soon?
I think there's an argument for that. To your point, you look at the East next year. Boston is right now out. We'll see what happens with the Jason Tatum injury. We'll see what happens with Giannis and what he decides. I think you look at next year and say they could run it all back and make the finals. I also think that there's an argument of why you should have kept him. And also, but now the guy you're hiring has this 1-year window with a wide open East to coach the team for the first time and have to now make or break, basically, championship or bust type mentality. So I go back and forth with it. I am very curious, given how late this is in the cycle, who they're going to hire and who do they get a sitting head coach? Do they get a first timer? That seems risky. People talk about Johnny Bryant, who was the Cleveland's assistant head coach, just finished in second place for the Suns opening that just went to Jordan Knott. He's a Tibbs disciple. You're going to fire Tibbs to hire his disciple. That's kind of a bizarre deal. So I think we're going to look back on this in a couple of years and say, should they have fired him or should they have stuck with him? And I do think that this is a very pivotal moment for the franchise.
You mentioned Johnny Bryant, the lead assistant for the Cavs, is one of the names. Another, Michael Malone, the former coach of the Nuggets, who has just left, though. If you had an idea of who maybe they end up choosing, where do you think they go?
It's a good question. I'm not making the hire. If you could get Houston to give you the chance to interview Ime Udoka,
which a lot of people are saying right now. Even Stephen A. is saying that they should hire him.
Former Knicks assistant took the Celtics to the NBA Finals his first year as a head coach. He's proven he can do what they want done, right? I think it's hard not to look at the other candidates and say, well, who did it as quick as him? Nobody. They want someone next year to pull an Ime Udoka, basically take the team to the finals in their first year. Well, he's the only one out there who can say, I did that, right? Steve Kerr took the team to the finals his first year, I'm pretty sure, but like, he's not leaving Golden State. So I don't know who else is out there that makes a ton of sense this late. People have talked about Jay Wright. It'd be cute for the Villanova storyline, but like, you're going to have a college coach learn the NBA in their first season with everything we just discussed. Like, I think that you can't really take it. You need someone with a proven track record. You can't. This is too important of a hire to screw up. You need to hire someone that justifies firing Tom Thibodeau with all those wonderful things that you just listed that he did.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Brown, Rick Pitino, other names that have been brought up, but it also has been brought up around the lack of loyalty, it feels like, for coaches in the NBA right now. It feels like there's more pressure. In this last 40 seconds that we have, do you feel like this is actually a shift that we're seeing in the league where coaches have a smaller window or shorter leash of win now or you're out?
Yeah, first of all, I think being a fired coach is one of the greatest jobs in the world.
Tom a lot of money.
He's getting paid $30 million. Yeah,
but
I think we are a microwave society. Everybody wants things now. And I also just think that, kind of to Steve Kerr's point a couple months ago, like, these teams are worth a crazy amount of money. They're owned by rich billionaires. And I would lose sleep over $30 million, but these guys won't. So I think that it's easier to eat the money now than it ever has been.
Yeah, either way, going to be one of the best pieces of drama that is happening in the city of New York, which we know loves and feeds off of all of this drama. Alex, thank you so very much for your insights on that. You can read more of Alex's stuff over on frontofficesports.com. All right, guys, coming up here next on the show, we're getting a preview of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, a rematch between Edmonton and Florida. We're debating that and what's happening in the series coming up next on Front Office Sports Today. Don't go anywhere.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks really got past that playoff dragon for them that really stood in their way. So for the New York Knicks to be the Celtics and then an outright favorite to win the Eastern Conference Finals, that's where the disappointment is.
The goalposts got moved, right? Because when you went into the Celtics series, a lot of Knicks fans said they weren't going to beat it. I'll say this is more unprecedented than the 99 run when they were the 8th seed.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Face, it's the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're the face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces of the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
And if they go through Cat, that means Cat at 11-1 could be Eastern Conference Finals MVP. The worst team in the WNBA is the Chicago Sky. They have no perimeter play. They're playing Sloot too many minutes. And Angel Reese doesn't have the help she needs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Bring in Jeff Merrick for more. Jeff, good to see you. So I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's go through Edmonton and Florida rematch all over again for the Stanley Cup Finals. So how did we sort of get here, and are these the 2 best teams here?
You know, it's a great question, and Baker, thanks for having me on. Renee, hello. I'll tell you what, this is an interesting matchup. I think we're all glad that we got here. Like, these are 2 teams that aren't necessarily built to have success in the regular season. Like, there's an old saying in hockey. There are players and teams that get you there, and there are players and teams that get you through. And these are teams that know how to get through the playoffs. A long-winded way of answering, Yes, these are the two best teams in the playoffs going head-to-head tonight.
Well, it's wild because we're talking about the Stanley Cup, the longest championship of any sport in terms of history. And it's not easy to get back yet. We're looking at Florida, who's in their third consecutive, looking to win their second straight. And, of course, the Oilers back again. Is there a shift maybe happening in your eyes in the NHL where maybe that experience, the star power, as you hit on, is maybe creating some sort of a separation in the league?
Well, with Edmonton at star power, certainly, Renee, and getting some good goaltending at timely times as well. But for the Florida Panthers, I'm glad you keyed in on the last 3 seasons. Going back to 2020, the Stanley Cup has gone through the state of Florida, the no-tax state, and we've heard a lot about no-tax states and the advantages that they have. The salary cap, when it came in 204, 205 after the lockout, was supposed to level the playing field, but then obviously there are other things that players find more desirable, and a player will sign for less to play in a no-tax state than a higher place. Most notably, all the markets in Canada, where taxation is in some cases higher than 50%. That is a major advantage here for teams like Florida, for teams like Dallas as well, who we just saw in the Final Four in the NHL. They went to the conference final in the Western Conference. So there was supposed to be a leveling of the playing field, but right now it seems in the NHL, Renee, it's a really good question. There is advantage tax-free states. And that's what I assure you everybody is talking about, specifically in Canada.
Yeah, but on the flip side, ratings advantage Canada, because when we look at all the numbers here, Jeff, the ratings are down almost 30% here in the United States, but the ratings are up in Canada. Is that a concern that we're not growing this enough in the United States? And sort of what's your take on this?
Question. Now, I think obviously it's growing locally, and it's taken a while for the Florida Panthers market to pop. I mean, Tampa popped when they started to win Stanley Cups, and the Florida Panthers had always, with all due respect to everyone in the Florida Panthers, it had kind of always been an easy 2 points. Tampa's going to be the tough out when you flew through the state of Florida, but you're going to get, 2 points, and you're not going to get bruised in the process either when you go through Sunrise and face off against the Florida Panthers. That has changed, and that market has now popped. I was there for a couple of games in the Toronto series, and the rink is packed, and you see Panthers jerseys all over the place, and T-shirts and bumper stickers and all of that. Has that translated nationally? No. So it's not a surprise. I mean, the NHL will always do better when New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or some of these, mega teams are in the Stanley Cup final. So it has popped in the local market. That hasn't translated nationally, obviously. But as far as Canada goes, having a Canadian team there. And one other thing we should point out, too, this is an Alberta-based team, obviously, in Edmonton. But there are a lot of players from Ontario, and that's led by Connor McDavid. A lot of Ontario players and a lot of people from Ontario, with the biggest population in Canada, are cheering for. So even in the East, it becomes easier to cheer for the Edmonton Oilers. And I think that's why you're starting to see a significant audience spike, even though it's not a team from the East, it's a team from the West.
It's interesting as we're looking back now that we're at the Stanley Cup Finals and kind of reflect back on the season, looking at things such as like Four Nations success, as well as the All-Star game for next season has already been canceled and replaced with that pre-Olympics event. We don't know exactly what's going to be. So obviously exciting time for the players to have a chance to compete in the Olympics for the first time in years, but also for the Islanders and for the league, no traditional All-Star game. Do you feel like the league's headed in the right direction to try to grow that international, whether it is Four Nations type of a tournament or whatever they're looking to do for this pre-Olympics, going in the right direction for a global presence while also retaining their core audience?
You're bang on. Four Nations was a shock to everybody, the success of it. Now, a lot of things lined up perfectly for the Four Nations. There was that Saturday night in Montreal with the 3 fights essentially off the face-off, which got everybody talking. And this is 1 week after the NFL wraps up and NBA's going through a lackluster All-Star weekend of their own. And there was a lot of attention on that game. There's a lot of, holy smokes, can you flip the channel right now? You will not believe what's going on in hockey right now. The Kachuk boys are fighting. Everyone's doing this off the draw. It's crazy. And the hockey was great. And it was Canada versus the United States in the final. And there was a political sidebar to all of it. And it's sort of, this is all under the umbrella of 51st states and tariffs and all. Like, so much lined up perfectly for the NHL that they couldn't have dreamed of, that it turned into this massive event that got everybody talking. So now the idea is to sort of piggyback on that momentum, carry it into the Olympics. The NHL, I mean, listen, when you look at the sport of hockey itself, it is not an international sport. It's not a global sport. but you have a look at Europe, and you're starting to see players now. Like there's one player in the draft this year who came over from China at the age of 12, Simon Wang. So you're starting to see more countries get interested in hockey. It is still a tough sell. I understand that. It is a tough sell in a lot of countries, but this has always been a sport that's been trying to figure out how to tap into the global audience they do have, and international competition seems to be the most obvious and probably the lowest hanging fruit here. So listen, it's wise for the NHL to do this. Not sure what they're going to do with the Islanders market next year and how they replace the All-Star game, but I don't think anyone's surprised that the All-Star game itself got scrubbed. I do like the All-Star weekend. It's great for sponsors. It's great for kids. Is the hockey great? No. But my life, Renee, got a lot better when I realized not everything has to be programmed to make me smile. So kids love it. Sponsors love it. Good enough for me. Take 1 year pause because the NHLers are going to the Olympics. I think most of us are fine with that.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, Jeff, really quickly, within the last 30 seconds we got with you, you're building an independent media brand now outside of Sportsnet. You got your podcast, so many other things. Tell us a little bit about how that's going.
Love it. It's great. I kind of like the sort of spirit of Amelia Earhart. It's just me and the plane. Now, maybe Amelia Earhart wasn't the best example, but nonetheless, I think you know what I'm going after. My first love has always been radio, and now my first love is audio. I believe we live in the golden age of audio. Now everything is married to video with it, but I like the idea that I get, my own hour a day. It's just me, my brain, and the microphone. Go. You can sink or swim. You have enough rope to swing or hang. Over to you, Merrick. So let's see what you can do with it. I just love it.
Who do you have winning the Stanley Cup? Go.
My heart says Edmonton, but my head says Florida.
Ooh. Either way, it's a win. It's a win. We'll take it. Jeff, so good to have you on our podcast, by the way.
Congratulations to you.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere, friends. We've got a lot more front office sports today headed your way right after this quick break.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers' interest in Aaron Rodgers as a joke. Your boy went off about the entire situation and why it taken so long to forget him. Terry Bradshaw getting involved.
Yeah, and saying basically, what are you bringing him in for 1 year? All of this drama for 1 year at this guy, where he is now in his career is he's washed.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker, and ESPN's trio of Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Richard Jefferson are going to call their very first NBA Finals this week. But according to a new report, it also could be their last. So for more on this, let's bring in our entertainment and media correspondent, Ryan Glasspiegel. So Ryan, why would ESPN be maybe looking to make a change here?
So this is a report from Andrew Marchand at The Athletic. This would be the third booth in 2 years. Remember, after Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson were laid off, first they tried Doc Rivers. He left for the Bucks coaching job. Then they tried JJ Redick. He left for the Lakers coaching job. This season, they basically held in-season tryouts to be who would be the third person in the booth, and it wound up being Richard Jefferson with Doris Burke and Mike Breen. The group hasn't gotten a great level of chemistry as of yet, and the report said that ESPN brass is evaluating the future as to whether the two analysts will return. Jefferson apparently has had talks with Amazon, and the report said that there was a chance that Doris Burke could be moved off the team next year.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at two Hall of Fame broadcasters in Doris and Mike, but then, of course, Richard Jefferson's been getting more games. I mean, he just started calling games last season and now is in a prominent role of being on the NBA Finals. Do you think that maybe they just tried too hard or moved too quickly almost to bring this trio together, and especially knowing that Richard Jefferson just might need more time, specifically in a three setup like this?
Sometimes booths take a while to come together, to your point. But it really kind of just depends on what they think it could be like if they did move Doris off. So, for example, they have Tim Legler on the proverbial bench. He's been really a great broadcaster for 20 years, kind of obscurely at ESPN, but he's been moving up the ranks more in the last year or two. And I think that he's called some games with Breen, and they've liked the way that that's gone. They've also got Jay Billis, who has been a huge star at the network for college basketball. He recently started calling NBA games. So those are the two that they would look at from inside the company. And then there's always new people coming out of the league that they could consider eventually. Now, two people that would make some type of sense are Chris Paul and Steve Kerr. Chris Paul is close with Disney CEO Bob Iger. He's done the ESPN studio during the playoffs in the past. And then Steve Kerr has been a broadcaster at TNT before he returned to coach the Warriors. He's won a lot of titles as a player and a coach between playing with MJ on the Bulls and now coaching this Warriors run. And so in addition to having a lot of rings, he also has some broadcasting experience. So I don't think that either of them are necessarily going to leave the NBA this offseason. But if you look into, a year, 2 years, 3 years into the future, there are possibilities to be in the top booth, maybe at ESPN, maybe elsewhere.
And Mike Breen, of course, going to be calling his 20th NBA Finals for ESPN and ABC coming up here soon. Ryan Glasspiegel, thank you so much for your insights, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. All right, Renee, even more airtime is coming for Stephen A. Smith, fresh off his new $20 million a year deal at ESPN to keep him on First Take. Stephen A. has signed with SiriusXM for 2 radio shows, one that will give him a new daily sports show, plus another weekly show that will allow him to talk politics and anything else that he wants to cover.
This starts in September, and I think it's a big part of the evolution of Stephen A. Smith. I mean, we now have seen him more involved, whether it was the discussion of whether he'd run for president or other
which
things.
Still is out there.
Which is still out there on the table, of course. But I think Stephen A. Smith is evolving. They're talking about having him more active on the NFL broadcast. So he's going to be on Monday Night Football, in their Monday Night Countdown, I should say. He's been on General Hospital and making TV show appearances. So this current events, political show that allows him to step out of just his hot takes and talk about any topic he wants to, I think is the direction that Stephen A. is moving. Plus, he is the face of ESPN, and they're clearly investing in giving him more opportunities, more shows, more airtime, as you mentioned.
Two things, actually, I thought were really interesting. One, this is going to be on Mad Dog Russo's, Christopher Russo, who's on First Take with him, his radio platform. platform on SiriusXM, his channel. And then the second thing is nobody knows what's going to happen with his regular weekly podcast YouTube show, the Stephen A. Smith Show. Is that going to stay or is it going to go?
Lots of Stephen A. Smith shows.
Too much Stephen A. All right, guys, we have an NBA Finals preview coming your way tomorrow on the show. We're talking about the ticket prices down significantly from last year's finals, be it the fact that, of course, you don't have Boston and Dallas in there. Plus a lot of other really big stuff headed your way. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more Front Office Sports Today. See you later.
Hasta mañana.